This is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Craig Cummings of Moonshot Capital. Craig, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here, Hall. Thanks for having me.
Great. Can you tell us how you got into venture capital? What path led you there?
Absolutely. The story will dovetail with the story about Moonshots Capital. So I am a West Point graduate from 1993, and I was in the Army for 17 years prior to leaving the Army to become an entrepreneur. So most people, when they hear 17 years, they give me the crazy eye and say, what were you thinking? If you'd done 3 more years, you would have retired with benefits for life from the military. But I had to scratch that proverbial entrepreneurial itch, and that's what I did. And so I left the Army my 17th year and partnered with a couple of West Point graduates, Guy Filippelli and Nick Callum, and we, alongside Sean Lane, started a company called BTS, and we put the first 3G network ever deployed into Afghanistan. And it was successful, and we ended up exiting that company and started another company now called Upskill. Formerly it was called Apex Labs, and got that company up and going. And that company is now in DC, and it's backed by NEA, Salesforce, Boeing, GE Ventures, and others. And then most recently, I started a company called Ride Scout with another veteran, Joseph Kopser, was my West Point classmate, and we sold Ride Scout, which was a ground transportation app, to Daimler in September 2014, which brought me to Austin, Texas from DC. And then I'll drop a semicolon. Throughout that entire time, I was sort of working with Kelly Perdew, who's my partner in Moonshots Capital. And I met Kelly when I was on the faculty at West Point back in 2005. And Kelly had just won season 2 of The Apprentice. So he was a West Point 89 graduate. And though he was out of the Army at the time, he was the biggest name in the Army after 30 million people watched that season finale. So I was assigned to bring Kelly up to West Point and bring him back to his alma mater and speak to cadets and faculty. And I did, and we became fast friends. So while I was doing this entrepreneuring, which I just laid out, Kelly was a part of that process, sort of mentoring, helping, advising, and then he would help the companies and help fundraising. Meanwhile, we were also looking at deals together. Kelly is a super angel investor in Los Angeles. And so I caught the bug in angel investing, started investing back in 2011. So it was a period, I'd say, in the last decade of heavy entrepreneurship and a lot of angel investing. And then it was in September 2014 that we started Moonshots Capital, started syndicating deals, and then that has now evolved into what we call Chapter 3 of our investment life, which is Moonshots Capital, the fund.
Can you tell us more about Moonshots Capital? What do you guys invest in, and what's your investment thesis there?
Absolutely. Well, as you could tell from the introduction, there's a lot of military in my personal and professional life. Personally, I'm the third of 3 sons. My father was an Air Force officer. My mother worked for the Army as a Department of the Army civilian. Both my older brothers went to West Point. And then I've started all these companies with other veterans. So not only do I enjoy working alongside vets, but I've also been successful working with them in the companies that we've started. And we've also been successful, Kelly and I have been, in investing in military veteran tech entrepreneurs. So our thesis is extraordinary leadership. And the organization that we know deploys millions of dollars into training people to become great leaders is the U.S. military. So we are heavy on the military vet when there's one on a founding team. We like to see those deals. We're not exclusive. So the big caveat is that we're not exclusive on vets, because leadership is not exclusive to the military. We see so many great leaders with deep domain expertise and who've had life-changing experiences as entrepreneurs once or twice. And so those are also great leaders. So up front, extraordinary leadership. And then right behind that is a focus on backing military veteran tech entrepreneurs. So in the space, we're sort of known as vets backing vets.
And so leadership is critical to any startup and so forth. Let's break that down and dive into that a little bit more. What exactly are you looking for in a leader of a startup? What skills really stand out as being the core elements of success?
Well, I think first and foremost is trust and integrity. And again, the military does not have any exclusivity over those, but when working with fellow vets, there's a high degree of trust, and we speak the same language. We've shared experiences. And so what we call the speed of trust really has a positive impact on our relationship as sort of an investing team and a founding team. I would say we like that trust factor that exists right out of the gate with the vet. Vets also know how to lead and they know how to follow. And one of our investment criteria is that the founding team needs to be coachable. We look for veterans who will respond to our feedback. They don't have to do everything that we ask them to do, but we do want them to be coachable. And I think the leadership and the followership, that training that you receive in the military, helps. And then I'd say third is that's about teamwork, leading team, having a vision, and leading others to that vision and working well with others. And it's a core competency in the military, especially when times get tough, and they are going to get tough. And I often say it's not combat and it's not cancer, two things I've experienced personally and through my wife. So everything's going to be just fine. And I find that the vets are always happy, to coin the phrase, nobody's shooting at them. And so they usually do well in a pressure-filled situation.
So how do you tell if a team is going to work well together? That seems to be a real key factor with startups. Everybody individually is a rock star, but when we put them together, it doesn't always meld. How do you know that's going to work if they haven't worked before? What do you use to determine that?
Well, Hall, I'd love to hear your ideas on this too. I would love to hear everybody's ideas on this, but it's a great question, and it's something that we really look for in the teams. We look to see how well the team collaborates, how they communicate, to use military language, how they shoot, move, and communicate. No shooting of weapons, but just in general terms, how in a fast-paced environment do they get along and make decisions. Now, in terms of looking at the vets individually, or the management team individually, but I'll focus on the vets for a minute. Because we come from that space, it's easy for us to pick up a phone, call Colonel Martin, and say, hey, Paul, do we want this founder in our foxhole? And we get very honest feedback from those conversations. And so as individuals, especially through the military ecosystem, we're able to vet those founders. And then it's just a matter of, usually we develop relationships over time. And I know you do the same, Paul. Like, you meet people over time and you see how the company grows, how it progresses, and you can start to tease out friction between founders. And we've seen it happen. We've had a very strong track record at Moonshots Capital. We've had, at least in our syndicates prior to the fund, we've had 4 exits, and we had 1 crash and burn. And it was a team where there was, right after we invested, we started to see the fissures between the management team, and it led to a downward spiral in that company. So it's something that we're always looking at. I invite you to share your thoughts as well.
Sure. As an angel investor, what you often find is people doing due diligence on the product or the market or the space, and the team is just assumed to be great. But, every failure I've ever had as an angel investor always went back to, well, the team wasn't quite up to what we thought it was. Sometimes we underestimated the challenge they were facing as far as market or competition, and that was a mistake. But in the end, it will come back to the team. So I applaud you for going after the team and your due diligence and really understanding that. And some of the things we found useful is to, as you do due diligence on the team, is find contacts that they've worked well with before and interview those people on previous projects. What were their strengths? How did it go well? And then find projects where it didn't go well and interview people on that side.
to see what happened when it didn't go well. Because as you know, all startups, things just don't always go well. There's always tough times, and now we start to find out what people are really all about when those happen. So it's trying to identify people in different scenarios they've worked with in the past, and then to see who really came out well. Even if the project didn't come out well, did the team member come out well? And due diligence goes in a lot of different directions in that way, and it's pretty rare. Like I say, most angels I deal with were always trying to dig into, was the product competitive, or is the space growing, or what's happening with the technology. But in the end, it's the team that's going to really make that thing come together or not. Maybe they get lucky on the product growth or something. But like I say, in every deal I've ever been in, there are times when luck is not with you, and it's only the only thing you have is the team that's really carrying you through. So I guess that's my take, is look at people from different experiences they've had in the past. It takes a lot of time to do that level of due diligence. You have to go talk to a lot of people for the core team and see if they're really going, how do they do in those other situations. I guess if they have a military background, there's a number of resources there to draw upon for sure.
No, I like it, Hall. That's really good. That's a great perspective. And I think you're spot on. It really does, what you're saying just reinforces the thesis of our fund, which is in backing great leaders, great teams, because we believe at the end of the day that leadership prevails. We believe that trends will come and go, and certainly AI and machine learning, these are game-changing technologies, and quantum computing and autonomous vehicles, and so much is happening. But we think above all else is the strength of that team, as you suggested, is most important. And so that's our leading thesis, and it's worked really well for us so far. We've had a pretty amazing track record, which is why, after being in angel investors individually, for Kelly going back to 2004, I go back to 2011, and then we started syndicating deals in 2014, and we've now syndicated over 20 deals. All in, we're about 80 deals that we've invested in. Over about 3/4 of that money has been deployed behind military vet tech entrepreneurs, and we have a especially high IRR, and so that was what inspired us, motivated us to get to the fund. Let's get serious about this. Let's get committed capital, and let's stick with this thesis, and that's what we're doing.
So if they have a military background, are there any indicators, deployments or specific projects or specific details they've done that give indication that they're a good fit for startups? Is there anything in the military that they've done that points to success that you found?
Well, I'll take the opportunity to talk about two of our first three portfolio companies in Moonshots Capital. The first one is ThreatCare, and the CEO is Marcus Carey. And Marcus is a Navy veteran who served the National Security Agency. And most of my time as an intelligence officer for the Army was at the NSA. So I know how selective the NSA is in choosing airmen and women and sailors and soldiers for these very elite positions in the sort of the cryptologic community. And the fact that Marcus served in these units and was successful, that definitely was an indicator to us. So we love when you have those direct military experiences that, he was hacking the nation, if you will. I mean, he was part of defense of our networks. And then now he's building a tool to protect networks, which is what he's done with ThreatCare, and an ability to do basically cyber reconnaissance and detect vulnerabilities. So that sort of alignment is really spot on. And it's similar to our second investment, which was in a company called New Knowledge, where you have a founding team, the CEO, who's a former counterterrorism official with the State Department, and then he had an Army soldier who also served at the NSA, a very elite select group within the NSA, and serving on, I'll just say, the front lines of the cyber war. And we knew those technical skills are pretty much unparalleled. So in both of those examples, when you get that sort of alignment, it's pretty special. But we like that, but that's not a requirement. I think it's a good question. There's nothing in particular. We don't look for bronze stars or ranger tabs. course, all those things are great indicators, but we just look for solid experience, and the person who didn't have to be in the military many years, but could, through that training, those experiences are very formative as a basis of a great character.
Well, that's great. That's good experience there. So in the last minute or two we have in today's interview, what else did we not talk about that we should know about for Moonshots Capital and what you guys are doing there?
Well, I would say remember what we're doing. Remember vets backing vets. Again, not exclusive, but that's in a somewhat noisy space with a lot of funds doing great investing. That's our differentiator. So for anyone that sees deals that has Navy SEAL on the team, and this can be from anywhere, we get deals from all over the country because people are remembering this, that it locks in the back of their brain. If it's from DC to New York to Chicago to San Francisco to Los Angeles, when people get that team with some military DNA, it usually finds its way to our inbox. And so I would invite everyone to send that to us. Moonshotscapital.com is our website. You can reach us there. Craig at moonshotscapital.com. And we're happy to talk to those who want to learn more about the fund or want to send us deals. So I appreciate the opportunity, Hall.
Great. Well, we'll put that email in the show notes so people can get back in touch with you. And want to thank you for taking time to talk today and hope to have you back for a follow-up interview on more of these topics in the near future.
Would love that. Thank you, Hall.
Sounds good. Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.